Hey, you found me. Thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Saunders, aka the Crazy Dog Lady. As my introductory episode, I wanted you to learn a little bit about me and why I'm the Crazy Dog Lady. So I brought in a special guest to talk about my background, the delightful dog dad and my husband, Brent.
Well, thank you for having me. This is very exciting. Your first episode of your new podcast.
Super exciting.
Are you nervous?
Very.
Why? About the podcast or about me interviewing you?
I think both. Maybe just you interviewing me?
But our first date was a huge, long interview, and that went really well, right?
Yes, but that wasn't recorded and then put out publicly.
Oh, just pretend like it was our first date. Do you remember where it was?
I do. It was the old 10-Pin Alley in Hilliard.
It was. And do you remember being late to it?
I was, but in my defense,
Why were you late? Why were you late?
Why else? I was at a dog show.
Because you're a crazy dog lady. So this is going to be a little bit different format, everybody that's listening right now. So Jill is actually the host of Crazy Dog Lady, and I'm just coming in to be a semi-temporary host for this episode, just that way I can interview her and give you guys an insight to who the Crazy Dog Lady really is. So I guess first, going back to when you first got your first dog, how old were you?
When I was born, we had a dog that my dad was taking to training classes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Your dad was taking the training classes?
We rescued, or I should say, my parents rescued a black lab border collie mix. Her name was Bocce, and she was out of control. So they asked everyone around them where to go, and they found Columbus All Breed Training Club in Columbus.
So what kind of training was Bocce getting?
Just basic obedience, how to be a good pet. She didn't have a lot of human contact, so she didn't know that she couldn't take food out of your hands or that she couldn't just run all over the place and knock you down. So just how to communicate with her.
So how old was Bocce when you were born?
Bocce was probably 5 when I was born, 4.
And so this is going to be more about how old were you when Bocce no longer was around?
Bocce passed when I was in 1st grade. So
I'm terrible. How old is that?
That's probably 6.
6? We should know things like this. This is basic stuff.
Should.
So
ask me how old the dogs are, and I'll get that.
So Bocce was like 11.
Yes.
Okay. So, but you didn't get to pick out Bocce. Did you get to help? Well, I guess you didn't get to help name Bocce since you weren't born yet.
No.
Why did they name Bocce?
She came with that name.
Okay.
She knew it when they got her.
How old was Bocce when your parents got her?
Her probably.
Yeah, pausing during a podcast is really helpful. So
I want to say she was around 2 or 3.
I'll go ahead and fill the dead space while you think.
Give me some credit. I wasn't born yet.
So she was 2 or 3.
Yes.
Okay. And then, so what was your first dog?
So my first dog was a miniature poodle named Amber.
Why poodle?
So
did you help pick out, or was?
No, I did not. I was responsible for Amber, but not directly. So when Bocce died, I took it very hard, and my parents said we have to wait a year till we get another dog. We need time. We just need to.
Where did that come from?
I don't know. I've asked my mom that many times, and she has no idea where she got that number from.
Interesting.
So
were you upset when Bocce died?
Yes, very.
Okay.
It was very traumatic. So Bocce passed, and my parents had me and then my younger brother, and we were very involved in sports and activities. And I think that was more so they just wanted to focus on that. But I asked for a dog constantly. I didn't want to wait. And I was at gymnastics class one day, and a lady was sitting next to my mom before class.
Wait.
Yes.
Gymnastics class?
Yes.
How have I not heard this?
I was really little.
How
long?
Long?
Between 1st and 2nd grade.
Just like a year?
I mean, a couple years.
I didn't know that. Does your mom have pictures of this?
Probably. She's got pictures of everything. She's a photographer.
Good point. Sorry.
And this lady sitting next to my mom said, "Hey, I know you guys like dogs. Do you want a DOG?" And my mom looked at her like they know how to spell. And that lady was involved with rescue and had a miniature poodle that needed a home. And so we were interviewed and were picked for Amber. And then it took something like 2 weeks for the original owners to give her up. But as soon as they gave her up, she came to our house. And my parents chose a poodle because my brother was allergic to animals, very allergic to animals. And so when Bocce passed and he was a little baby, they said, okay, no more shedding dogs. My mom had a toy poodle growing up, And she said, well, I know poodles, so let's go for that. So then Amber.
So did Amber come with the name Amber?
She did. She did. We tried to change it. So my mom wanted to name her, I think, Doodles, because she had really curly hair on top of her head and it looked like little doodles. Mm-hmm. And Amber flat out refused to acknowledge anything but Amber. So her name became Amber Doodles, and she responded to Amber Doodles.
So is that where the infinite number of nicknames for dogs came from?
Amber had so many nicknames. We called her Amberger. We called her Tortellini. She liked the word tortellini.
Well, that's not even close. How do you get tortellini out of Amber?
Because we were trying to find treats that she liked for training classes when I first started. And so...
And she liked tortellini?
She loved tortellini, but she loved the middle of tortellini, like the cheesy part. So she would lick it out and spit out the noodle.
I did not know that.
You're learning all kinds of great stuff about me.
I am. This is not just an education for your listeners. It's an education for me as well. And then now if I ever forget anything, I got on record. I can go back and learn about you.
That's true. That's true. So yes, Amber had many nicknames, and my whole family participated in giving her nicknames. It was not just me.
So was Amber your first dog that you were obsessed with?
Yes. So my first job when I was probably 10 years old was to let out the neighbor's dog while she was at work. So after school, I'd go over and let out. Her name was Hannah. And Hannah was very energetic. And so we started going, hey, that's not enough time for her. So we'll bring her over to our house and let her play with Amber for a while and then take her home. Well, that became longer and longer until Hannah's owner would just come home from work, and instead of going to her house, would just come to ours across the street, get her dog and go home. So Hannah spent a couple hours a day. Our neighbor got married and moved, and Amber was really sad. So we all felt bad, and we ended up adopting a second dog. But Amber...
Well, wait, who's the second dog?
Franklin. Yes, also a miniature poodle.
And was that intentional? Because
he's a poodle, yes.
The first poodle wasn't really intentional. It was just
right.
you needed to help a dog that needed a home. So Franklin
and we couldn't have a shedding dog.
Right, because of your brother. So was Franklin an intentional poodle?
So our next dog was going to be a poodle. So my parents kind of looked around, were into rescue big time. So they were just kind of waiting for that perfect dog. I was at bat mitzvah practice, and my mom went shopping at PetSmart to get Amber some stuff, and there was a dog adoption event. And one of the cute dogs she saw was actually already adopted. It had been adopted that day. So they said, oh, but we have a miniature poodle that's too shy to come here. Why don't you come meet him? That was Franklin. He joined our family a few weeks later.
And you know the question I'm about to ask about Franklin.
Mm-hmm. What were his nicknames?
Well, not where did he get his name?
So he came with the name Frankie. The rescue adopted him. But my brother was really little. He was probably 6, 5. And he said the only way that I will be okay with getting another dog is if his name is Franklin Roosevelt or Frankie Farter.
Why Franklin Roosevelt?
He was obsessed with presidents at the time.
Really?
And so he thought that Franklin Roosevelt was a good name.
Okay, and so then yeah, and for the record, for everybody listening, this is not my idea to ask about names and nicknames. This was Jill's actual concept, because she said that you learn so much about somebody from asking, where did you come up with that name? And I thought that was really interesting. So that's why I'm forcing her to go through how she actually came up with all the names. And then, our current two, oh my gosh, I can't keep up with the number of nicknames they have. So it's always fascinating to see all those nicknames as well. So what nicknames did Franklin have?
Frankfurter.
Furter or farter?
Frankfurter first. That was the first part. And then my brother, being, 5, 6-year-old boy, said, oh, that's like Frankie Farter. So he became Frankie Farter. He didn't have as many names. He was a big rescue case. He did not know how to be a dog. He sat in the corner of the kitchen and shook for weeks. He wouldn't let people near him. He was terrified of everything. So we really just, with him, focused on getting to know him and making him comfortable and teaching him things like how to eat dog food out of a bowl or how to drink water out of a bowl. He didn't know any of that.
How do you teach a dog to drink out of a bowl? I feel like it's you lead a horse to water.
Right. Well, the bowl was scary. So you start with something that's not as high edged so that they...
Like a Frisbee?
Yeah, that would work.
That's interesting. I've never heard of a dog not knowing how to drink out of a bowl.
Frankie...
Or being afraid of it.
Frankie was
So was he abused?
We don't know his story.
Okay.
His tail, he had a long tail for poodle. We call it natural tail, not docked.
I thought you
And it
meant
was
his story.
broken in a couple places, and we don't know his story. We know that his tail was broken in a couple places, but we don't know who had him.
Tail, not Tale.
Oh, well.
See what I'm saying?
But his tail, Tail, is a big part of him because we know something had happened. How it was broken, we don't know exactly, but we know it was broken in multiple places, and that most likely was not an accident. And he had never been groomed before, so he looked like a big apricot rock. Poodle hair doesn't stop growing, so not having been groomed, he had to be shaved to the skin, and that's how they found his tail being broken in so many places.
Oh wow, that's crazy. So he had a long tail, and they didn't know that it was broken because of all the hair.
You could barely see his face.
Wow.
He was a literal blob. And for many years, the rescue group had a picture, the before and after picture of him on their website.
How old was he?
We don't really know. Somewhere around 1 or 2, maybe. He was in such bad condition that it was just really hard to tell.
Okay, so now you've got Amber and you've got Frankie.
Yes.
And what kind of? I mean, are they just pets?
They were just pets. When I was 10, we were at the Pet Expo in Columbus, and I saw a demo of obedience and agility. And I remember exactly looking at that, being amazed that those dogs could do that, turning to my mom and going, I want to do that. And she was like, yeah, sure. And I kept talking about it, and I kept talking about it, and I kept asking. And so they called around to some training places in Central Ohio, and at the time nobody wanted a young kid to come in with a dog that wasn't trained and take classes, so they kept telling us, call back next year, when she's a year older, call back next year. Well, by the time I was 12, I was so serious about it that my mom really pushed, and we accidentally found 4-H. And someone had said, you have to go to this 4-H group. There's the best trainer and 4-H leader around. Her name is Julie Hosley, and she'll take care of Jill, and she'll learn all kinds of stuff. So we called Julie Hosley, Mrs. Hosley, and talked to her, and she welcomed me with open arms. There was no 4-H training group for dogs, no 4-H group for dogs in Franklin County at the time. So this group was based out of Johnstown, and so my parents would drive me from Gahanna to Johnstown, so a half hour each way, just to train dogs every day during the summer.
So that fascinates me because prior to you, I didn't know that. I thought 4-H was just farm animals.
4-H is any project. There's sewing, there's cooking, there's photography, there's rocket building.
Get out of here. Wait a minute. Are you serious?
Yep. There are hundreds of projects.
that.
You just need really an adult that's an expert or enjoys that topic to create a program and submit it to council for review, and they make a whole program out of it. Anything that you can show at the fair, any project you can show at the fair is 4-H.
Again, showing my naivete, I thought that the fair was for animals. So like that for farm animals, I guess I should say. So that amazes me that even things like projects like building a rocket, I didn't know that.
There's
That's
fashion.
amazing.
Learn how to sew and create a dress and show your fashion skills.
Yeah, but that's like a farm thing, right? They have to make their own clothes. I don't know if that's true. I don't know many farmers, obviously.
No, well, that was the misconception. In middle school when I started, in high school, anyone that knew 4-H was like, oh, that's for farm kids. And I did not live out in the country, so I didn't know anyone else at my school that was in 4-H.
So at the time you started, so you're 12 years old and you started in the 4-H program, and you got to go up to Johnstown to do it.
Yep.
So it's probably 30-minute drive for you, maybe.
Yeah.
How big was the dog program? What's it actually called?
Well, it's called the dog program.
Oh. Okay.
In each group has their own name. So we were the Licking County Kennelairs, and we had
Are you getting teared up?
We had probably, I want to say like 10, 15 kids for a big year.
And so,
kids with their dogs, and some kids had multiple dogs.
And so that was when you were 12, and you said it wasn't in Franklin County. So when did it come into Franklin County?
I don't know. I was a Licking County 4-H'er until I was 18. So I stayed with my club the entire time.
Oh.
So you age out at 18. And so I stayed with the Kennelairs from 12 years old to 18 years old.
Okay, so they find this program, this 4-H program.
Yes.
You go up there, you start doing it. What exactly is the program?
So it's Mrs. Hosley would teach a class how to teach your dogs different skills. And so we did a lot of obedience because that was like a required class at the fair to show in obedience, which is the foundation really for all dog sports. How to communicate with your dog is what it boils down to. And so we did obedience. We'd go in group classes based on our experience. So I was brand new and there were a couple of us that were brand new. And so we had our own class, but then another day of the week we would come and watch, or another time slot, depending on what the offerings were that year, we'd watch the older kids and see them. So it was always about the club, like your team, and learning from each other. And the older kids or more experienced kids would help out with the beginner classes. So they would help us and kind of like a buddy system. Here I was 12 years old with a dog that didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. So it can be kind of chaotic. So the older kids would help. So Mrs. Hosley's oldest daughter, Kelly, she helped me.
So which dog were you taking to 4-H?
Amber. Amber was my 4-H dog first, and she was a little sassy pants. So she did her own thing. And there was one class, it's called grooming and handling, which is really like confirmation, what you see on TV, the walking around the ring with your dog and presenting them.
So like Westminster
yes.
and National.
Amber loved that. She wouldn't practice. She would lay down and practice every day, and she would refuse to get up. She'd lay in the grass and say, that's all I want to do. And we'd get to a show and she would put on her charm and she magically knew everything she was supposed to do. But I really wanted to do agility, the jumps and tunnels. Amber had bad knees. She had luxating patellas, so she couldn't jump. And we had Frankie, so Frankie became my first agility dog.
Oh, so you took Frankie too?
I did. When pretty much only to agility, he was scared of everything. So we reserved him for just agility. He was not very good. He was too scared of most things. So that did not last very long.
So, all right. So you begged your mom to do this.
Mm-hmm.
She finally relents, finds this 4-H program. You go and do basically confirmation with Amber, and you're doing jumps and tunnels, agility with Frankie. Which one, like, kind of, did you have a favorite?
So Amber was really special. When I was younger, I was very quiet and I didn't really talk to anyone. Amber was the opposite of me. She was very outgoing, wanted to be around everybody all at once, the center of attention. She was really good at this grooming and handling class. The very first show I took her to, she placed first. And she really placed first or second in every show that she went to. Our big competition was the state fair, the Ohio State Fair. She ended up taking 4th place out of all the kids there from all over the state. So that was a really big deal. So she was really fun to show. Frankie was not fun to show. He was so scared of everything that he didn't work with me. So it was a lot of just coaxing him and trying to make him feel comfortable. But my parents thought that this was a phase that would kind of fizzle out quickly. So they just kept taking me to classes. We kept kind of fumbling through, but it wasn't a phase, and I got a little more obsessed every show.
So did the fact that, Frankie wasn't a very good, coachable dog, did that make you lean more towards confirmation and dislike agility? Not because you did anything wrong, and not that even that he did anything wrong, just he's not a coachable dog, especially because of his past possibly. So did that discourage you?
Absolutely not. I was dead set on this, and I was dead set on this is my dog. I love him. We are going to get through this. And I had the mentality that we will get through this and we're going to be good one day. And I just kept going. I didn't give up for anything. I worked harder and harder. I would ask for agility equipment and new equipment for presents. That's all I wanted. And finally, my parents said, okay, she's pretty serious about this. Let's look at getting her a dog to do this with. Amber was getting older, and I wanted to do agility. And I'm pretty sure I fought them saying, no, Frankie is my dog, and I'm sticking with him. But then this standard
Wait
poodle.
a minute. You were stubborn?
Oh, yes.
I have not heard this before. Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Right.
This is enlightening. So sorry.
They found, along with my other 4-H leader who taught agility, they found the standard poodle that needed a home. He was 2.5 years old. He was a wild child, and they thought that he had all this potential. And my parents called his foster mom in West Virginia and talked, and we all decided that this dog really had the potential to be good for me. And I was 15 then. And so my parents, in a snowstorm, drove us all to West Virginia to pick up this standard poodle named Jet. And Jet became my agility dog.
Okay. And so it sounds like Jet came with the name.
He did.
Do you know how they came up with the name?
So his original name was Judah, and his first owner named him Judah, and she passed away when he was 2. And the lady Cindy that fostered him, she would watch him run around and called him fast as a jet plane, and that Judah was just too long to yell out on an agility course. So she said, okay, Jet, that's his name. And it was kind of funny because I didn't really care for the name. It was very common in agility, fast like a jet plane. But Jet was unique because he was white. And mostly people named their black dogs Jet, Jet Black, and then fast as a jet plane. So Jet was the only white jet around in agility. And so even though he had a super common name, he was really different. Everyone knew Jet.
And what nicknames did Jet have?
Oh my gosh. Where do you want to start with this?
Go with your favorite.
Jet Claude Van Dog.
Jet Claude Van Dog.
Yes. Jetster, Jetty Spaghetti.
Okay.
That became Chester. I don't know. Chester.
Any rationale behind the formation of these names?
No, absolutely not.
Just random.
Well, Jet Claude Van Dog was a joke because Jet was the center of attention. He walked in a room, he made sure everybody saw him. He was a movie star. He knew he was fabulous, and everyone had to take note of him. He actually took that a step farther, and he actually did get attention from
Hollywood.
From Hollywood. He was picked to be in a show. So he really had that it factor. He just walked in a room and everyone noticed him. Unfortunately, he took that into the agility ring and said, hey, you think that's funny? Let me give you something even more outrageous. So he did all kinds of antics in the agility ring. The A-frame where they have to climb up, and it's an A-frame shaped like walk, and they run up one side and down the other. He would go to the top, and I would tell him to come down here and hit the bottom, and he would look at me and jump over my head off of it.
Over your head?
Over my head.
Is there a video of that?
I'm sure. My mom has a lot of videos of that.
Yeah, we got to get some video of that. That'd be great.
Yeah. There is a video I made for a scholarship of a lot of Jet's antics. It's not on YouTube.
Oh, that one's not on YouTube.
That one is not. It should be. Maybe I'll have to upload that one. Jet was a character. And sometimes he would just be bad and then look at me and run out of the ring, go back to where his crate was and wait for me there. Like, I know I'm bad. I'll just wait here.
So back up and tell me about this TV show.
Yes. So this would be my freshman year in college. There was someone that was casting for a dog show and was talking to dog people, and they approached me to hear Jet's story because everyone knew Jet and all of his crazy antics. And so I wrote up a couple paragraphs on Jet's story, that he was a 2.5-year-old standard poodle when I adopted him. His first owner passed away in the home with him. And I had lost a puppy in between getting Frankie and Jet. And I took that very hard. And, you know, Jet was healing from losing his owner, and I was healing from losing this puppy. And we kind of found each other, and Jet, like I said, was wild. And I did not have the skill to handle this wild dog. Yet somehow we worked, and his foster mom knew that there's just something about the situation that's really great. And so we became this really bonded team. And because of that, Jet learned all kinds of tricks. He became a therapy dog. He would visit anyone and everyone. He was at hospitals and schools and nursing homes. Everybody knew him. Everyone saw how hard I worked with him. And to be honest, a lot of the top trainers in the area questioned him as an agility dog because he was so outrageous and loved the limelight so much that he'd do silly things. And yet here I was sticking with him. And we were that team. My stubbornness came into play again. And we were that team that everybody stopped and watched. Because when he was good, he was good. When he was bad, it was a disaster. But everyone just kept, watching us and getting to know us. And I worked my way up from just the kid at the dog shows to, oh, look, she's a trainer. And so this TV show wanted to feature dogs with stories. And they said, wow, here's this kid and his dog. And he was a beautiful dog too. So they chose us to interview. So one night they said, hey, you've got 24 hours. We need you in Chicago for interviews with a behaviorist and the TV crew or the filming crew. So I drove with a friend from Columbus, Ohio to Chicago overnight. We interviewed the next day, and they let me know a couple days later that he was chosen for the show. One of 10 teams.
So what was it like being on the show?
We were not on the show.
Well, you just told me you got picked. You just told me.
We were picked, and they really wanted it. Unfortunately, I was in college my first year, and I had a lot of scholarships. And the school said, no, we're not going to hold your scholarships if you take a quarter off. And I couldn't pass up those scholarships. So I said, I'm sorry, we can't be on the show.
That's just, I mean, it's just incredible to think that you even just getting picked for something like that is pretty cool.
It was a complete honor to have somebody that knows dogs and knows TV that says, hey, your dog is good enough. And I worked really hard with him, and I took that very seriously.
So what was the name of the show? Did it get published?
Was America's Top Dog. It was on CBS, and that would have been 2006. 2007.
So did you watch it?
I did. I watched every episode, and I put Jet through every test they had.
And how'd he do?
There was one I couldn't recreate. It was dogs on a zip line. I didn't have the equipment for that, but he would have won easily. We didn't need a TV show to tell us that, though. He was the top dog.
So that really, I mean, had to have gotten you amped up, you know, again, getting chosen for a TV show and everything, and really kind of locked you in with, hey, the bond that you have with that dog.
He was... We call it in the dog world my heart dog.
Okay, I'm not in the I'm in the dog world now because of you. I wasn't prior to this, so explain what that means.
He was my dog soulmate. There was something about him. I needed him at the time. He needed me. We were inseparable. I mean, he did everything with me. And I call him the world's best, worst dog. He was a bad dog. I mean, he did a lot of bad things. He would eat anything he could get his mouth on, whether it was edible or not. He gave my parents a run for their money because he was always so energetic. But there was something about him that just pulled on my heart. And he lived to be 12 and a half. So I had 10 and a half years with him. And now
is that I don't know, is that normal for a poodle, a standard?
It was a little short. 12 is typical. But he had a tumor either on his heart or his lungs. And so he passed at 12 and a half. But up till the end, he was spunky as can be. So he was my heart dog. He was that dog that just for my entire life, I'll always compare everything to. And in our house now,
so that's what that's what I'm competing against. I'm competing against Jet.
Yes. Every person, every man in my life is compared to Jet. Yes.
What's your favorite memory of Jet?
Oh, my favorite memory? That's a hard one.
I should have prepared you for that one because I know that you have so many in your head.
There are so... It's ridiculous.
Pick one.
So probably on the way home from picking him up, on the way home from West Virginia, this is also my mom's favorite story. We were in the van, and Jet was sitting... We had two captain's chairs in the middle. So I was sitting on one, my brother's on the other, and Jet was in the middle. And Jet burped really loudly. And my mom turned around and said, Jill, quit that. We don't want to hear that. And I was like, it wasn't me. It was the dog. And she yelled at me for burping that loud and not saying, excuse me, and just being rude. And she didn't believe me that it was him. And it took months until this dog could burp across the room. You would hear him. They were wall shaking burps. And she finally figured out that it was Jet. And to this day, tells stories about how she blamed me for him burping.
If only Jet could hear you now.
Well, there was truth to my mom blaming me, but that one wasn't me.
Wow. So I think that we're about halfway through your dogs so far, and we've gone about half an hour. So I think we should go ahead and wrap this part up, and I'll follow up. We'll do a couple more episodes later on to learn more about you being a crazy dog lady. But for the listeners, can you tell people what to kind of expect from this podcast? What the heck is Crazy Dog Lady Podcast all about?
So Crazy Dog Lady Podcast is really a resource for dog owners. Everyone from someone getting their first puppy ever, all the way to the crazy competitors like me, the ones that can't get enough of dog sports and want to learn all about sports. And it's a way for people to learn about different dog products, dog services, dog sports, stuff that maybe they didn't know before.
And I think that one of the things that you'll create value for people, and entertainment and education is just you have such a vast network of people, and it's amazing when we're out and about and people will be talking about dogs, and you can be like, oh, I know a person that can help you with that. Oh, I know a dog breeder that can find you that heart dog. You have such a vast network that you built over these past some years, 5 years.
It's been 20 years.
So over the past 20 years, you've built this network, and you are a connector, pure and simple. I've seen you connect so many people to dogs, to breeders, to behaviorists, to trainers, to sports, it's amazing. And especially with the, poodle being your breed, it's amazing how many people have misconceptions about poodles. And you've helped open people's eyes, including mine. And so I think that this will be a fun podcast for people to listen to and really educate themselves on, every type of dog breed, training styles, sports, different ways to, enrich their dogs. So I think it'll be a really interesting and fun podcast.
I hope so. I'm excited to talk dogs.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your first one. I'll try to sneak back on from time to time and update people with, other stories about the Crazy Dog Lady. But thank you so much for listening, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on with me.
Love you.
Love you too.